Well, hello, friends and fellow pioneers. Today we have the special treat of having Farmer Greg Peterson, the urban farmer, back on to tell us some updates on his courses and some upcoming events that you'll get to benefit from. I did an interview with him last year on seeds. And if you're interested in buying bulk seeds and learning how to save seeds, we encourage you to go back and watch that broadcast. But today we're really going to talk about all the beautiful community initiatives and education that Farmer Greg has co-founded and prepared for people to be able to learn online about all the really important things that have to do with seeds, with water harvesting, with growing your own food. So with that, Farmer Greg, why don't you just go ahead and tell us again, for those of the people that are watching that may not have heard your story yet, how did you get here? How did you start doing this work?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I started doing this work um, many decades ago, actually. I was in the eighth grade. I was 14 years old. That was 1974. I was inspired to write a paper on how we were overfishing the oceans. And that just stuck with me all the way. Fast forward to 1981, so that was 74. In 1981, I actually designed on paper what we would now call a regenerative fish farm. And in 1991, I learned about permaculture and regenerative design, and I've been off to the races since then. And making sure that we're sharing with people, in my opinion, the most important thing that we can be doing at this time, and that's learning where our food comes from and how to grow our own. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Oh, you're muted, I think.
I couldn't agree more, and that's what you know why we love having you come to, and we're so grateful that you'll come talk
Yes,
to
thank
us
you.
about this topic, because it's not just even about stewardship of the earth, it's about stewardship of, if you're not well, how can you um
Live through life healthfully.
make a positive impact, because you're recovering all the time, and that's what the sick care system has you
Oh,
know
yeah.
designed for
I
you.
I call it our death care system in this country.
Right.
And I just moved. We're going to talk about this in a little while, but I just moved from Phoenix, 1900 miles to Asheville, and I had to get a new medical insurance policy. It was 3 months for me to get an appointment with a death care doctor as my primary care. It's like we have so many systems. Oh, I'm preaching already, and we're just getting started. We have so many systems that are just on the verge of breaking down in our world, and the death care system is one of them. Actually, that might be a good thing.
Well, it's like it's just really a really good time to stop relying on people that do not have our best interest in mind and take that
Yep.
responsibility back. I don't even think it's taking control back. It's taking responsibility. When you take responsibility, then the control just comes naturally, because you
Right.
are being intentional, because
Yeah,
you care.
exactly.
I mean, it's like you have a conviction and everything else falls into place.
When really, I've said this for years, really, we cannot rely on any entity out there to do anything for us. Going long term, because our systems, our infrastructure, our healthcare system, our political system, all of our systems, our food delivery system is so tentative. I don't think long term we can count on it being there. So we have to figure this out on our own. And that's really my message. It's like, how do we get people growing their own food? Because this picture in back of me, this is the front yard at the urban farm. And you know what those are, going to seed? Those flowers are? You're muted again.
Uh,
Those Look at the abundance of them. And each one of those flower heads, I'm going to get out of the way even farther. Each one of those flower heads has hundreds of seeds on them. Those are carrots going to seed. There is enough carrot seed that you're looking at there to last me for my lifetime. And when
Wow.
we look at the abundance that comes from nature and our gardens, it is mind-blowing. A friend of mine in Phoenix just did her apple harvest off of her 3 apple trees and got over 2,000 apples.
Wow.
It's just, we need to return back to nature. And
Right.
nature is what feeds us. And I've said this for years, that the capital T place that is going to solve our global food issues is
The
urban,
garden. Yeah.
and our gardens, coming from our gardens. That's right,
Hmm.
coming feet away from our kitchen rather than miles or thousands of miles. So
Yeah. I mean, for those of us up that are believers, it starts in the garden and it ends in the garden. I mean, that's where life
right,
began, and that's how can we expect to have an abundance of life and nourishment and health if we're so far removed from where life originated and where all the nutrients are so fresh. And I will never forget when Jason and I were going through Jeff Lawton's permaculture design certification course. I remember the most impactful thing of that whole thing
tell me.
years ago was how he talked about how the food, as you expect that it has nutrients, is really all the nutrients are really mostly there the first 3 hours of harvesting, and
That's
that
right.
actually changed once we went through that course. It actually changed how we harvest our food, that because I used to harvest things that maybe like save it for the end of the day or the next day or whatever. And then I was like, I'm growing this food, and then I'm like basically taking away, it's like might as well just buy it from somewhere else if I'm not going to eat it right away. And so we actually try to pick it right when I'm about to cook it, put it in
Yep.
the blender or whatever, so that we are taking actual advantage within the 3 hours when it's very nutrient rich. And
Well, there's
all those things make such a difference.
there's another piece to this, and that is if you're harvesting things that aren't ripe, they're not at their peak nutrient density.
Hmm.
In fact, there's something called a lectin. One of my permaculture teachers calls it an anti-nutrient. And unripe fruits and vegetables have lectins in them. And as they ripen on the vine, those lectins basically go away. So if you're eating things that are picked when they're unripe, they're higher in lectins, they're less nutrient dense. And oh, when they're picking something that's not ripe and they're picking it in Mexico and shipping it to Asheville, North Carolina, as it travels, the nutrient density on it reduces. So grow your own, man. That's the way to go.
Yeah, and I also think about, I mean, if I'm not going to grow it myself, one of the things I do is I try to buy frozen or, freeze-dried frozen, something like that, because they have to have it at its peak best. And I don't have, I mean, if you buy fresh food, you take it
Mhm.
home and you get to figure out, oh, this one's moldy and this one's, that's why I stopped buying fresh strawberries, because I'm like, oh, I get to eat all this moldy stuff and I get to discover it myself. And so
Right.
I kind of, one of the things that I do is if we have to buy, until we have our tropical greenhouse, if I have to buy
Mhm.
tropical fruit, I buy it frozen, because I have to ensure that it's the very best, and they go through and pick out what's not good, and try to
Yep.
give the sweetest and the best. But I love that you shared that. They're really, and I know that this is not something to do with dairy and things like that, but I remember learning about the enzymes, that are like in fresh dairy, that help your digestion.
Yep.
And then when you do the things that are required um, for transport and all these different things, then you lose your ability to digest this, what we believe
Right.
is very nutrient dense um, food. but it's like we shoot ourselves in the foot with all this convenience. One of the things that we've come to realize is in the name of convenience, a lot of evil's been done, and we allow a lot of things that are not good in our lives because it's
Right.
convenient. It really takes a lot of effort and a lot of you have to be very intentional to actually take
Hmm.
advantage of God's abundant goodness on this earth. But it's not convenient to, like, for storing for later and things like that. I mean, even if you're going to can it or freeze dry it or dehydrate it, you have to go pick it and all those things. And it just takes effort. And if you let somebody else do that for you, then you're putting your future and your health into somebody else's hands.
There you go.
And there's really no real win there. So tell us about I want to go ahead and share my screen here. You have such an abundance of resources at the urban farm, and your website and your podcast. Tell us, based on the things that we've talked about, how people that are ready to take the responsibility for their own health, for
Hmm.
understanding where their food comes from, understanding that there's so much that they can do. Tell us about what they can find at the urban farm website.
So, thank you. We have a bunch of courses and a podcast that goes back 710 episodes at this point. And we have had an amazing abundance of people. Hold on one sec. Sorry about that. We have an amazing abundance of people that have been on our podcast over the years. And our courses are designed to walk you through the different aspects of the things that you need to know in order to be successful at growing your own food. So Jumpstart Your Urban Farm talks about the local food economy and really blows apart a lot of the myths of what it takes to actually grow your own food. And it's really super simple to grow your own food, um, and to become a farmer. And gardening is super simple. And there's this thing in our culture where people are, oh my gosh, how can I grow, whatever. There's this barrier that a lot of people have in place when gardening is actually one of the simplest things that you can do if you let nature, take its course, let nature do what it does. And so Jumpstart Your Urban Farm is our first class that we suggest that you take. Um, then Growing Food the Basics, the one on the right there, covers all of the things that you really need to know in order to successfully start growing your own food. There's 7 key factors like water, seeds, soil, um, all that stuff that we cover in that course. And so really what I'm committed to, and this happened for me in 1991, I created a vision for my life that I am the person on the planet responsible for transforming our global food system. And for me, that's not a burden. That's what gets me up in the morning. It's like, wow, this is what I get to do um, today, is I get to get people inspired about growing their own food. So that's a lot of what happens in our podcasts and our classes are really about inspiring people to get out in the garden, grow your own. It's better for you. You can grow it organically, and just by getting your hands in the soil, there's microorganisms in the soil that get in your body that make you healthier and happier.
Yeah, there's
So,
there's really everything's in the ecosystem for us to take advantage of.
yeah.
So if they jumpstart their own farm, they learn the food growing basics.
Hmm.
What do you suggest is next? Because I know seed would be seeds is like where I would start, but tell us what you would recommend then. Would they learn about seeds next?
I'd probably, if somebody was asking me that question, I'd probably go with the Permaculture City class. That's the one there on the right, taught by the famous Toby Hemingway. He wrote the book Gaia's Garden. And Gaia's Garden is the top-selling permaculture book on the planet, and he explores in depth how to work in a permaculture way. So permaculture, I like to call the art and science of working with nature. So how do we plug in and work in the flow of nature? We as human beings think we know how to do it better than nature. And I have news for you. Nature will always win. Nature's going to end up on top. So we need to figure out how to work with nature. And what I've done over the past 30 years in learning permaculture is I've learned how to work in the flow of nature. And it's a magical class that he gave. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away in 2016, but we were able to grab that content and make it available for people. And then we have some more specific things like our urban animals course, if you're interested in keeping bees or goats or chickens. The urban animals course is, is where to really dig in.
And Carrie is so wonderful. I really like learning from her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She actually teaches our Growing Food the Basics course and our backyard urban animals course. So I think we called it the Backyard Barnyard Summit when we did the summit, which is also included in the course. And then we do a yearly water harvesting in depth summit, which is happening next week. And people can go to waterharvestingsummit.com to sign up for that. It's a bunch of content talking about probably the single most important thing we can be talking about right now, and that's water. I don't know how much you all are paying attention to what's going on in the Southwest and the West, really. But I'm significantly plugged in. I lived in Phoenix for 54 years before moving to Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm significantly plugged into what's happening there. And they're running out of water in the West. And we're going to see massive, I think we're going to see, this is my opinion, we're going to see massive water shortages coming up in the next 3 to 10 years. And we need to be paying attention and doing something to help mitigate that. Things like 70% of the water used in urban areas is used to water gardens and to water lawns and landscapes. And you can produce enough water through greywater use in your house to water your landscape. Probably not going to be watering a lawn, but you can with greywater. Greywater is any water that goes down any drain of your house except your kitchen sink and your toilet. And you can actually use that to water your landscape and water your gardens. And it's super simple. And we talk all about that in the Water Harvesting Summit.
Sorry about that. So another thing that, people with water, personally, Jason and I think that to use the beautiful resource, life-giving resource of water, to flush it, it's just, I don't know, it's just catastrophic. And I think,
Yes.
exploring, if you have a backyard or any way that you can start, if you're having a water crisis, why would you use the water that you would need to drink with to water your plants that are going to give you food, right? And for hygiene, why would you use that for something that you really can't? You're ruining it. I know that there's ways, like long ways, to purify that and all that, but it's very wasteful. And to me, using water for gardens that are just lawns, for decorative purposes, and flushing it, to me, they're like right there, because both are pretty useless. They're not really giving you, it's not like that grass is growing, helping feed like an animal or do something, or growing something
Right.
that you can use for compost. And I think just opening our eyes to what we're doing with that water. And we've gotten so used to turn the faucet and the water comes and you can wash your hands and you can brush your teeth and you can flush and you can shower. But to me, uh, apart from understanding or having that conviction that that flushing it and basically contaminating it is a very wasteful. The other thing is that running water, just the convenience of running water creates a lot of waste. I remember when we were completely off grid when we first moved to our land 10 years ago, and we had absolutely nothing like as far as convenience. um, and so we had it basically like designed our little shower setup, and I realized that I could take a shower with, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but it's so much significantly so much less water, because I had a way to, I mean, because I had to be intentional about when to use the water.
Right. Yeah.
And I think moving away from running water, depending on running water, or using it all the time when you don't need it, is also like such a great awakening, in my opinion, to understand like where is all this water going from when you get your water bill, right? You have like thousands of gallons. Where
Yeah,
are they
exactly.
going?
Yeah.
What are they being used for?
They're going down the drain in a lot of cases. Well, and one of our classes that we're giving at the Water Harvesting Summit this year is a humanure class. And a lot of people will say, "Ooh," but you really got to think about it. And I actually said to Heidi, Heidi's my partner. I said to Heidi yesterday, you know, I think people need to be peeing in the yard, because if you pee in the yard, then you're going to reduce by probably 80% the amount of times that you need to flush the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
That is saving a lot of water.
Yeah, and there's also the Liquid Gold, book that talks about
Yep.
um,
Yeah, exactly.
that, and and for people that just think that they're not there yet, they have to kind of, it's a process, right? Pioneering is a process, but
Yes.
um, you know, any animal that performs that, you see it like, oh, they're fertilizing the right, the tree,
Right.
all right, and so for best purposes, you can um, dilute it, and if you decide, that you need comfort, right, and privacy, you can set up a 5-gallon bucket and get one of those lids, dilute
Yep.
it by 10%, and then find something that you want to, fertilize. It is important to understand that in nature, all these pharmaceutical toxic things they're not really welcome. So you do also have to consider, that the biggest blessing is, from a pure body that's not being receiving all these chemicals and things like that, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, we are part of creation, and then we are just, it's just like it's an ecosystem. And I think it's just like
Right.
why are animals so special that they're the only ones that that we consider our blessing, let's say, nature, and then we have to contaminate our most precious resource to flush away our waste. And the it's really, really sad, when there are issues of water problems, and the things that you smell is because water is combined with the waste, right? And when you remove that with the humanure process, there's no water involved for solid waste, and there's no smell. I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing to be awakened to, that a lot of the problems that we face in society today are created by convenience, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
What I say is go pee on a tree, especially a fruit tree.
right. That's awesome. Okay, so let me, we talked about the Water Harvesting Summit. Is there anything else on the courses that we're going to touch on before we move to our exciting part 2 where we talk about some personal news, go more in depth about your move.
Yeah.
I see here that you have, let's see, I believe that I saw that you also have um, a, I don't want to say it wrong, but don't you have like a membership or something that people
Oh,
can
yes.
kind of support your work on an ongoing
Yes.
basis?
Yeah, we have our, if you go to urbanfarm.org/patron.
Patron.
Um,
Okay. And where did I see
yeah,
that? Is that on the,
good question.
yeah. So I'm going to go there, but I know that I saw it and I couldn't remember where on
Yeah.
the navigation it was.
Yeah,
So,
we have to get to a place. We have to get to a place where we can be financially self-supporting as well when we do this work. And I'm still not there, believe it or not, after having done this for a decade. But I still do it because it's what I need to do. It's what I'm supposed to be doing right now, and getting the word out to people. And so we have our patron program. The silver level includes the first 650 episodes of our podcast, and some other things. The gold level includes a couple of extra classes every month that we give. We literally have, I don't know, 150 classes that we've given over the past 10 years that we've recorded along the way. And it's really about inspiring people and educating people how to grow their own food.
and what a beautiful effort. I don't think people realize that actually archiving is it's costly in time and human
Yeah,
resources. And then you have to, keep up with all this. It's a big, big effort to be able to, if you think about back in the day when you had like magazine subscriptions, right?
right.
Um, this is kind of like having a library where all of your magazines were stored for
Exactly.
you and organized, and it's like a fire safe that that it's going to preserve it, and they're not going to go away. And so this is one way to help the archive live on. And
Yes.
so I invite you all that are watching to consider, if this is something that you want to learn more about, consider supporting this work in an ongoing basis. And also at certain levels you get discounts on future courses
Hmm.
that and events and things that they put together. And so if this is something that is of importance to you, this is one way to also keep it kind of top of mind, right? Because once you're
Exactly.
investing, then you pay more attention. So if you want to
Yep.
prioritize, a really great way, kind of I mean, one of the ways of our fast track life is, if we want to prioritize, we just go ahead and invest in it. And it just kind of, you have to because you commit. And sometimes
Yeah.
you need that accountability for people to just, if someone's thinking about this all the time, and this is something that we're considering doing as well, to help people kind of, um, you basically, you and your staff are helping people kind of come along and think about this in a deeper way. And it's a beautiful journey to be on. And so I asked Farmer Greg to share something for the end. We're about to kind of reveal a couple of photos to share about the topic that we're going to cover in part 2 of our time together. Um, but I wanted to say, we kind of touched on a couple of the challenges of doing this work. But I would love if you touch on with your education. You mentioned the self-supporting aspect, and we've talked about like preserving the um, materials and things like that. Is there anything else that you would share that you would say it's been the most challenging aspect of taking on this work, taking on this mission?
Well, I think that the biggest thing for me is the overwhelming nature of the problem. I've studied it for 40 plus years, and the magnitude of the challenge that we're facing, uh, if I let it get me down, it would get me down really quick. And so I have to keep breathing through that and just share with people that the easiest thing to grow and the most expensive thing to buy in the grocery store is herbs. So buy yourself some herbs and grow basil on your windowsill. What's better than having fresh basil for your caprese salad? So there you have it.
Well, that's awesome. That's actually the first thing I tell people to do too, because it's so resilient. It's
Right?
like it's an
Yay.
easy win. You get to eat it fresh. You save money. You have the satisfaction of like this parsley is not gonna die if you water it a little bit, or this rosemary or
Right.
lavender. Um, and even green onions are not, herbs, let's say, but they're one other thing that I tell people, like, buy them once and clip clip, and you have them like forever, and they are very resilient unless the chickens find them.
There you go. There you
So
go.
thank you so much for sharing that, and I agree the magnitude of the problem is quite overwhelming, and to know that we have so much that we can do, and
Hmm.
it's like watering something every day. It's just, you just have to do it. Um,
Exactly.
so let's talk about, to leave our audience with, after sharing all the wisdom you've shared, if there was only one thing that they could remember from your resources, from your experience,
Hmm.
what would that be? You've taken this on for such a long time. What would be that one thing, that one gem of wisdom that you would want people to remember?
You're going to kill something. When you plant a plant, you're going to kill it. Don't let it discourage you. I promise you, in 45 years of growing food and fruit trees, I have killed more trees and more plants than you ever will. Not on purpose, it just happens. My current garden that you're going to see a picture of here in a minute isn't thriving the way that I wanted it to thrive. But don't let that get you down. Just keep in the process and do it again and again, and you will be successful if you don't give up.
Wow, that is beautiful. Thank you so much. To be um, comfortable that failure is a foundation, or, oh, what we see as failure, but um, that process of understanding what works and doesn't work,
Mhm.
and death in plants is part of that, right? To understand that, to move forward, you're going to have to fall, and you're going to have to make mistakes.
Well, it's
That
just like learning how to walk or ride a bike. I mean, you didn't do it the first time and get it right the first time. You had to figure it out over and over and over again. Bruised a couple of elbows learning how to ride a bike. Same thing's going to happen in your garden, but don't let it stop you.
Awesome. That's so beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Farmer Greg, for always giving so much. So, as promised, here's a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about next. So, I want you to pay attention to the description of this video, has a link to our next broadcast. We're going to talk about some wild, exciting thing that Farmer Greg did this year, to after like 4 decades of being
54 years in Phoenix.
wow, it's actually like 5.5, almost 5.5 decades,
Yeah.
to uproot, right? To uproot and transplant to one of voted the number one city, best city for food, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So stay tuned, because Farmer Greg is going to be talking about their move, the wisdom gained from that, the experience, what caused them to do that after so many decades. And we're going to have a peek into a couple of more things that they're doing and their vision for what they're looking to accomplish in this new place. You do not want to miss this. I know that a lot of you either are going through this or know someone that is going through this, asking themselves the question, should I move? I see what's going on. Is it my responsibility to pick up and move? Is there something else I can do? And if I do move, where do I need to go? And Farmer Gray will share why they picked the location that they did. So thank you again for all of you that tuned in, and thank you again, Farmer Greg. And we will see you all in a couple of minutes as we restart the new broadcast. And may you all be blessed. May the Lord bless you and keep you and shine his face toward you, be gracious unto you, turn his countenance toward you, and give you shalom peace. These are turbulent times, but do not despair. Have hope, get an action plan, and work it.